Well, hello and welcome to the 23rd episode of the Alpha Liz podcast. I am your host, Quest. Joining me in a return appearance, back to back Alpha 3 Oz tournament winner, Lukefitz. Welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks, Quest. It's great to be back. And today we have the honor of welcoming a famous name in the Alpha 3 community to the show. If you play Alpha 3, you've probably heard whispers of this man. Recently, he won the Red GGPO Alpha 3 tournament, and he's been a top finisher in various other online tournaments. He also has YouTube footage and sure you can forum post stretching way back to the early days of Alpha 3. So without further ado, it's an honor to welcome Temujin to the show. So over to you, Quest, to kick off the interview.
Thank you. Welcome to the show, Temujin. How are you?
Hey guys, I'm good. How are you? It's great to be here.
Yeah,
I've been listening. I've been following you guys for a while now, and you managed to get some big names on your show, so I'm really impressed about that.
None as big as you.
Yeah, right.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we've had some big names, but not many with a story like yours or I should say, a history like yours, because you've been playing for quite some time now.
Yeah, I gotta admit. I mean, I started off with the first time I went to an arcade, Alpha 1 was there. Well, no, actually, the first time I went to an arcade, it was Street Fighter 2 original in 91.
Yeah, nice.
At near my high school. But the first time I went downtown Montreal, they had Alpha 1. And I just found it amazing, you know, the colorful graphics and everything. And then I played Alpha 2 I played Alpha 2 a good amount. I was playing with my friend on PlayStation, but I was a big fan of Alpha 2, so I was really, really excited about Alpha 3. And from the day that it came out until I kind of slowed down my playing in, 2007, 2008, I was like a major player and major fan.
Yeah, wow. So you're a day one Alpha 3. Nobody can claim that they've played it longer than you.
Day one, that's it.
Yeah.
Basically, I played it in the arcades for as long as until the last arcade closed down, which was until the last arcade with Alpha 3 closed down, and then we continued on console a bit, and then it kind of died down for me 2008, 2009, and that's when people switched to online. Players like Sandman.
Yep.
And
sure.
And that's when I kind of took a long break, and then the only time I would play is I would go over to Sandman's place and play a offline session, and then it would be close because he was getting better and better, and I was trying to hold on and everything. And then I just recently started playing again online when the quarantine started in March.
Oh wow! Okay, so fairly recently.
Yeah, that's when I kind of restarted getting back into it.
Yep. Well, let's start from the start of your Alpha 3 journey. When you started playing Alpha 3, what was the scene like in Canada?
In Canada? Well, we didn't... At that time, we'd never really traveled to other cities. So we really had no idea what the other cities were like. I just knew Montreal. And basically, it was at that time in 98. I mean, we had arcades at, every second corner of the street downtown. You would go up one street and you would pass by like 8 arcades, or arcades pretty much everywhere. Yeah. And Alpha 3 specifically was popular, and it was in every arcade. And then we had our districts, we had people were playing it all over the place, but we had some hotspots where the better players were. And the two hotspots I would say was downtown and this area a bit further from downtown, Côte-Vertu. Those were the hotspots where we would find the best players. And I was from the downtown arcade, and we were really good. And at some point we all met. We all reunited when we started doing tournaments, which I helped start the first couple of tournaments. But overall, the arcade scene, there was Alpha 3 machines everywhere. It was great.
Yeah, right. I remember James Chen saying that when the game first came out in America, that people kind of thought that Xism was like overpowered. Like, X Zangief or X Dalsim were like the best characters, and Vism didn't really kind of take off until a bit later. Was that similar with your experience?
Definitely. Well, you had, definitely before the Vism combos were discovered,
Mhm.
Xism and Aism were quite strong, and there was a couple of Xism characters which were really strong, like Extralento, and a
Yeah.
common
Okay.
strategy. A common strategy. We from what I was reading, I used to follow it on this bulletin board called alt.games.sf2.
Oh wow.
That's
Yeah,
that
that's even before Shoryuken.
that was before Shuriken. Yeah, that's the only place I would manage to get any kind of info because there was no transmittal of information at all at that point
Mm.
back
Yeah.
in 98, 99, back in 1998. And I would hear these things about Extralento and how in California Extralento was winning all the tournaments. Like they would do walk up jab 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 low fierce jab jab low fierce break your
Yeah.
bar and then super and all these kind of cheap tricks and Xism in general had a lot of damage. So yeah, I mean Xism against Aism doesn't do that bad. So yeah, Xism was definitely a good ism in the early days.
Yeah, it's interesting. So would you say you're one of the stronger players in your scene in the early days, or was there some kind of Street Fighter 2 players that also took it up quickly?
Um, in Alpha 2,
Mhm.
I was like an average player. There was a lot of players at the arcade, and I went to Montreal is very international, and the pre-university community college I went to had a lot of people who came from different countries, and they were better
Mhm.
at me in Alpha 2, specifically, the Shotos. Like they were really good with
Mm.
Shotos, and
Yep.
I didn't understand them very well. So Alpha 2, I was definitely not at the top. But
Mhm.
because I played Alpha 3 since the beginning, I still wasn't amongst the best players. I was maybe, top 10.
Yep.
The first ever couple of tournaments I didn't win, and yeah, but I was good enough to beat, most players.
Yep. Sure.
But yeah, I wasn't the best. I don't think I was the best. No.
Yeah. So you mentioned a
That
couple of tournaments. Sorry to cut you off, but
no,
you
go
mentioned a
ahead. Yeah.
couple of tournaments. Is one of those tournaments the T series, or was that later?
That was a bit later. Like our first tournament was 99,
Mhm.
and then I went to ECC 4, East Coast Championships 4 in Dunedin, New Jersey, United States, in 99. I went by myself. There was one.
Roughly how old were you then? Were you like in high school, like
I was
traveling across the
in
world to play Street Fighter?
Not yet. I
Yeah.
was.
Okay.
No. I was past high school. I was 98. I was 19.
Okay.
So
Right. Yep.
so basically, I was barely over 18, and
Mhm.
yeah, it was a big trip for me to go to the States. I was all alone. I had to take the bus, and like there was no GPS, there was no Google
Yeah.
Maps, there was
Yeah.
nothing. All I had was written pieces of paper with directions that I got from a couple of people I met online in alt.games.sf2.
Yeah.
And it was a big adventure. It was
That's
also my
awesome.
first time going to. I went through New York. It was also my first time in New York, so I did a bit of
Mhm.
bit of sightseeing there. And basically, your question was, how was the tournament scene? Oh, the
Y-
tournaments. Okay.
So yeah, yeah. So let's start with the earlier tournaments. You said
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
EC4 before the T series. EC4. How did that go?
ECC4. So
Yeah.
that one, I finished. I must have finished like that's the first tournament where the West Coast players visited the East Coast players. So all
Wow.
the guys
Okay.
from
Yeah.
all the guys from Cali, John Choi, Alex Valle, Viscant, Jason Cole, all those guys, they came over. They did sightseeing in New York as well, and they came over and they joined that tournament and they won. Like Alex Valle was first. Amir Saleh, who was a third strike player, he finished second with Ex Rolento. And Tao Duong, who also plays sometimes with his A Charlie, he finished third.
Yep. Yep.
And yeah, it was a great experience. And people wanted to see how Eddie Lee was was the strongest East Coast United States player at the
Yeah.
time from New Jersey. They wanted to see how he would do. and he lost because obviously he didn't have the experience that Alex Valle had with the Japanese coming over, Daigo coming
Right.
over.
So this is after that big tournament.
It was after,
the video on YouTube. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that was after. That was the year or less than a year afterwards.
Mhm. Yep.
So that after that tournament, when I came back to Montreal, I became a stronger player, and we had regular tournaments. I was running most of them. We started having regular tournaments, and yeah, it was great. And yeah, that's how it all started, you know. But there was one guy before me that traveled to the ECC 3, but yeah, amongst the Alpha 3 players, I was the first one. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. What kind of characters were you playing back then? I know you're kind of known for playing V Sakura a bit later on.
Well, at first, my main character I think was A Rose. A Rose was my main character. I loved playing her. Like, she was fun to play with. One interesting thing was that in those days in '99, it was still frowned upon to throw people, to grab people.
Wow. Okay.
In our
I would have
city,
thought Alex Valle and stuff were like past that, right?
They were, but in my city, it was still frowned upon to throw people because they, you know, the cheapness of it from the Street Fighter 2 days carried on to the next games. And then when I went to ECC, everyone was throwing, like, as if it's a part of the strategy, you know, which was like, I just found it like that's a cheap thing to do. And then when I went back to Montreal, I started throwing everybody. I was like, no, like, this is what people do now. Like, everyone throws. So I started grabbing everybody, and at first they were like looking at me funny and shocked, and then eventually, like, everyone started doing it too. So I'm the one who kind of introduced throwing or grabbing in whatever you call it in the Street Fighter, like in our group or in the main people we were playing. That was pretty cool.
That's a claim to fame.
Yeah, but in ECC, when you saw them throwing, did you actually voice that to people? Did you just say, you know, hey, that's cheap. Why are you doing that?
Well, the thing about it is that we never really considered it that cheap, but because we weren't accustomed to it, I just found it strange that people would use it as a strategy. You know, we were less good. We were thinking about landing combos, landing supers, attacking. So throwing wasn't really something we would do often. But when I went to ECC and people like would click throw and they would just throw all the time, and you know, that's when I realized that grabbing is a decent strategy in the game, and that's when I started doing it in Montreal. And yeah, like I said, there was still some resentment about it. But when people threw to me, I didn't say anything. I was just a little surprised, but I didn't voice out anything. No.
Yeah, sure.
I'm not that type of person.
Yeah. Not to get in a confrontation about throwing in an arcade.
Yeah. No. Well, I've heard of stories of people getting into big confrontations. So yeah, that's why I asked you. But there's a clip of you playing Ricky Ortiz. I believe it's at a Summer Jam. But you were playing as Dan. Was he like your main at some point, or?
At that point, that must have been early 2000s, and at that point I already started expanding my character list, which is very similar to my character roster right now, which is about 7 characters.
Okay.
And Dan was one of them, V Dan. And the thing about it was that I did try picking Visa. She was my main V Sakura, but Ricky Ortiz, John Choi, and Justin Wong, and maybe a couple other players, they mained V Sakura because obviously she's a strong character.
Right.
And they were really experienced in the V Sakura mirror. And in Montreal, there was no other V Sakura, so they were really beating me bad in the V Sakura mirror. So I just tried to mix it up. I was sure he never played another V Dan before. And I think I took a round, or I almost took a round, but I think I was also intimidated. So I'm not sure why I took V Dan, but anyway. Yeah, I was beating people with V Dan for sure, but
what do you think about Dan? What do you think about Dan?
Dan's great. I love
he's like his legit character in Alpha 3.
I think he's mid to low tire maybe, but I don't think he's very low tire. I think I use him a lot. If he's I don't know if you I'm able to beat the average player on Fightcade with A Dan. I don't even take V Dan because I find it more challenging to take A Dan.
Yeah,
and I could beat many people just with Adan, and I think he's a great character. But you have to know his good normals.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
he's a really I love playing that.
What's the game
I like
plan? Like, how does he win? How do you win with Adan? Like, how do you approach it?
the main attack strategy is jump forward, short Tatsu.
Right. Yep.
That's your main attack. It's such a dynamic move where if you do it early and if you do it late, or if you do it late, it just changes the whole hitbox. So if you change your timing, it really confuses the other guy if he's not used to him. It's
Yep.
hard to shuriken. That's your main strategy. And then mid range, you just throw out standing forward. That's great too. His low strong is great. And
Yep.
then once in a while, yeah, low strong. If it's counter hit, you could combo into the short Tatsu.
Okay. Yep.
So low strong counter hit so you could just buffer the low Tatsu every time and then just do that 2-hit combo. And the thing that makes Adan winnable with him is his level 3 kick super. That super is one of the best supers in the game. It catches people really far away, and then if it hits it's a lot of damage. It's it's one of the best supers in the game, I find.
Wow,
It's a
I never knew about that.
great super. Yeah. It's a great super. His forward kick super. I find it's a great super. So that's
good to know.
I win a lot of matches just by like biding my time and finding that super, and it's all one thing that I don't know if you guys are familiar with Hack. He's one of the best online players right now.
Yep.
Yeah.
He plays only Aism, and I played him a couple months ago, and he said, "Oh, I got to be careful. You're getting good, right?" And he only gave me one. He only gave me one tip, and the tip they gave me was you have to save your super. You can't throw away your super for nothing. You should only use your super to close off rounds or to close off the match. Because I would if I found an opportunity, I would use my super like early on in the game, and then but if it doesn't kill them, they could come back, and then you start off the second round with no super, or the third round with no super, So
right, yeah.
Like if let's say you're in the second, you won the first round, you're in the second round, and you have a full super bar, like don't waste your super because you might lose that round, and then you want to go into the third round with a full super bar. So that's something that Hack taught me, and ever since he told me that, I don't know why I didn't think about it before, but I kind of changed the way I viewed supers. And it's really something that he said a lot of people don't really think about that too much.
I guess the counterpoint to that would be that if you spend it early, then maybe you can build another super. Like anytime that you're playing with a full super bar, you could be building it. But I can definitely see I think people have told me that as well. Like, it's don't go into the third round with that super.
Yeah, I think if you're just starting the match, like if I often play A-Ken versus A-Ryu, for example, against Carved, and if I jump over the fireball, I'll do jump fierce into super, and then I'll have a huge lead, and I have the whole rest of the match to rebuild that super to level 3. That's true. Right. But I think if you're deep into the second round, I wouldn't. You have to think about the third round.
Yeah, sure.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, when we had QQG on the podcast, he said that you should use level 2 super in Aism. That way you have one left, so you can alpha counter against Vism opponents. Is that something you use or you've seen used?
I haven't used that strategy yet. And usually when I take Aism, my opponent also has Aism, so I don't really play against a lot of people that use Vism and use it in a way that they do unblockables, and you need that alpha counter. Like, there's not really that many Vyakumas, good Vyakumas out there that I guess if you're playing against Vyakuma, it makes sense to keep one alpha counter to stop his unblockable. But I haven't used that strategy yet. I haven't thought that deep about it.
Okay.
About that, but it's true. It makes sense.
Yeah. Before you said there was a lot of Sakuras back then, I heard from Justin Wong on one of his videos. He was saying that the Sakura was considered stronger back then because not many people were using crouch canceling, which benefits other characters a lot more than her. Do you agree with that? And do you think that was a a legitimate reason at the time why there was a lot of Sakuras?
I think he's maybe he's thinking about it more as the infinite the years.
Yeah.
Like she's not an infinite character, and when infinites or canceling weren't used much back then, she was stronger, and I agree with that. Personally, I think I was the first person in North America, or maybe the only one early on who started using crouch cancels with Sakura.
Hmm.
Obviously non-infinites, and that's why
What's
I'll
your
tell you
setup for that? How do you hit that? Like what? I'm not aware of this.
well, you could do a jump fierce counter hit,
Mhm.
crouch cancel, jump, activate, jump fierce, hits 2 times, crouch cancel, crouch cancel, jump fierce until corner, and then you do the ender. You
Wow.
could
Okay.
do you let's say you do the standard combo and you have him in the corner.
Mhm.
If you're doing VC1, you're doing the fierce fireball, fierce
Yep. Yep.
fireball. You whiff a stand strong, you jump,
Mhm.
shadow hits, and they can't flip because the shadow hit them and they didn't have a chance
Right.
to get neutral. And then in the air you do the jump fierce, crouch cancel, jump fierce, crouch cancel, jump fierce. If
Yep.
you're VC2, it's a different setup where you do
Mhm.
stand fierce, fireball, stand fierce, possible. Then you do whiff, stand strong, jumping back strong, crouch cancel, walk forward, jump forward, jump strong, and then if they flip, it resets the damage. If they don't flip,
Mhm.
you just continue the combo. So those are the main ways to
Yeah. So
do
the
it.
idea is you're hitting them with fierces in your VCs, which is doing more damage than the normal. Um. Does it? No. Well, the normal VC is fierces as well. Is it? It's just a more stylish VC to hit them with, or you get it from
Well,
air to air
the
counter
point
hit. Or?
the point is when your VC meter ends to keep juggling them afterwards to build
Ah.
meter.
Okay. I get it.
Yeah,
Yep. Yep.
that's the whole point of it. So basically, if you do it like I never did it as efficiently as the Japanese. For example, in the
Mhm.
main VC1, where I have a like a really disciplined jump fierce 4 times and then low fierce and do her 3 punch kick thing, 3 punch
Yep.
dragon
Yeah.
punch
Yeah.
kick. I just have it down 100 like really efficiently, but the
Mhm.
Japanese they go for 5 or 6, so they go for more. If you do it with them,
Mhm.
they get close to 50%. But then there's no I've never seen a post Sakura VC hit 50% where you could actually reactivate like some of the other characters can, like V Sodom or V Karen.
Mhm. Yep.
I don't think that exists. You could get close to 50% if you do it really efficient like the Japanese. I usually get 35%,
Yeah.
whatever, and
Sure.
that's good. You're starting off with that much.
That's pretty strong. And then you jump back Tatsu, like whip a few throws, you're pretty much at 50%. Like that's yeah, that's powerful.
Yeah. There's one thing that I do that I never see anybody that I don't really see anybody else doing
Mm.
is I do a reset. So instead of like
Mm.
finishing with the low fierce into the dragon punch kick, I do a
Yep.
low fierce into a fierce fireball, and then
Okay.
if they flip, I could reset them. Or and if they don't flip, I could just finish off the combo, and it does. I gain a good amount of meter. But if they actually flip, then there's
Mm.
different ways to catch them flipping, and then you can reset the damage. So
Yeah, that's interesting.
yeah,
Yep.
there's a lot of it's complex. It takes a lot of practice to learn. I mean, but that's all I was doing back then. I just wanted to
Yeah, sure.
master B Sakura.
So you were practicing this in the arcade, like paying tokens for practicing this stuff, or were the console versions out by then?
No, the console versions weren't out back then. The only one that was out early on was the PlayStation version that came out pretty fast.
Mm.
But I mean, there was no joysticks to the PlayStation
Right.
version. It wasn't perfect, so people just
Yep.
continued playing in the arcade. And luckily for me, like the arcade was next to my university, and I would just go there all the time.
Yeah, sure.
And a lot of people would just give up playing against me once I started learning Vism, especially V Sakura. And then it would be me against the computer, and that's where I would practice my combos. And let's say there
Right.
was no
Okay.
one there, I would take survival mode where you face all 27 characters, and I would finish survival mode like each time, and I had 27 chances to practice my combos. So
Yeah,
you get a lot. You get a lot of worth for your quarter.
Yeah, if you're good.
Yep. You went to some tournaments with a player called Prez. Like, how good was he, and did he have any notable wins?
Yeah, Prez. What happened with Prez was that when we started doing tournaments, he was the main guy. He was the guy who was beating everyone. He came from Trinidad in the Caribbean, and in Trinidad, they were big on hyper fighting. So they were really good in the whole Shoto game, like Fireball Shuriken game. So he was beating everyone for a while just with a Ken, just Fireball, you jump, fear Shuriken, and he would just beat people. He would just beat people like that. He would be winning all the tournaments ever since we started in '99. And then what happened after that is he went to New York. And he went to visit New York. And in New York, they discovered a Dalsum, which they copied from the Japanese, right? So then, after he went to New York, Henry Sen, a player from New York, taught him how to play a Dalsum in the cheapest way possible. And then he went back to Montreal and he switched to a Dalsum, and he was winning all the tournaments for a good 8 months at that point. And then I was playing VSEC at the time, and I was always trying to beat him. And in that YouTube video, was that in that particular tournament in June 2001, that was the first time I ever beat him, and that's the first tournament I won. And ever since that tournament, I've won almost all the tournaments. And I was able to after I dethroned his A Dalsum, I beat him like, I don't know, 95% of the time after that. And that's why I feel I'm very, very, very good against Dalsum, because I have a lot of experience against Dalsum. And I don't know if
what got you over the hump. What got you over the hump? Like, what were the strategies that helped you to beat that Dalsum? Because I find that a tough match as well.
There's a lot of things you could do, but there's a lot of little tricks. Like, for example, one really cool trick is if you have a character that has, I'm not sure if it's all the characters, but Sakura has a small sprite or frame sprite or whatever.
Yep.
What if Dalsum mid screen, Dalsum's like to do the drill with the head there, the head drill. If you just crouch down and just don't do anything, and you wait until it won't hit you, and then you just do low short. So it's gonna whiff you, and then you could hit him with low short, and with Sakura you do low short, shuriken.
Right.
And if there's other characters that have low short strings, you could do the same thing. That's one nice trick.
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
Yeah, that's something that, like, as far as I know, I'm the only one who really does it. You could back fierce trade his standing fierce or his standing roundhouse.
Right.
And what I learned recently, and what I found cool recently and during the quarantine, is you could actually back fierce combo into the jab fireball, and it's a 2-hit combo. So you back fierce stuff his standing fierce into a jab fireball, and it's a 2-hit combo, and it's okay damage. The fireball's so far away, it doesn't do much damage, but hey, it's better than nothing. Her low forward stuffs his slides. Another thing that I do is I like to do stand jab, and then when I feel he's gonna slide or whatever, I jump straight up, and I land with the jump forward and do my combo. Just watch any character that has a good standing jab, like Gen or Chun-Li or Sakura. You could just walk up to and do jab, and then grab, or jab, back fierce. That kind of pressure.
Yep.
So, do you guys know Arturo Sanchez?
Yeah, there's a video of you playing him, actually. I think you win, or you at least win the first game that I saw.
Yeah, well, he streamed a couple months ago, and I know he's rusty, but A. Dalsum is his main character, and he was, when Street Fighter died down, I think he was known as the best A. Dalsum, at least in the East Coast.
Yeah.
But I was playing against, I find, a very, very good Dalsum, a very, very hard Dalsum, which is carved, which is he's a very good player who recently in the past few months, he's only been playing against me, so people don't really know him that well, but he's the one guy who got me to the next level recently.
Yeah,
And
interesting.
I played so much against his Dalsim, I'd be taking off. I'd be losing 15-0 against him. But I got so good against his Dalsim that when I played Arturo Sanchez, I beat him 5-2.
Yeah,
And
that's how you do it.
there was one strategy that I use. I haven't seen other Sakuras use. Is when they like to throw out fireballs against Sakura. You just jump over the fireball and do spin kick, and
Yeah, I
it
like doing
hits them.
that. Yeah.
It hits them once, but after it hits them, they're cornered or they're close to the corner,
Mhm.
and then you have a big advantage. So when Arturo Sanchez he saw that, he was like, "Oh my god!" He was like, he wasn't used to that as well.
Mhm.
So like I did pretty good against him. I didn't see the replay, but yeah, like I think I caught him off guard. And I'm
Yeah,
not,
nice.
and there was a couple other good Dalsim players that I faced that I did good against that they
Mhm.
were main Dalsims. I played against Kyokuji's Dalsim. We
Yep,
had a long
yep.
set. We had a long set on Steam, and from what I remember, against his V Dalsim, I think it was A or V Dalsim. I went 2-2. So I won 2 games and I lost 2 games. And
Yeah, right.
yeah,
So you're a Dalsim specialist.
I think so. I think I am. And one
Who-
trick that I
it-
use,
Yeah, go for it. Yep.
one last trick that I'll say that's really
Mhm.
cool is if you have Dalsim cornered and you're
Mhm.
doing your combo, like they like to, Dalsim could air teleport out of combos. That's his main strength, right?
Right.
He could
Yeah,
air. But if let's say you're doing fierce fireball, and he air teleports, you can
Mhm.
reset him by doing stand fierce jab shuriken and then you retest the damage. And that's I got a lot of rounds off of Arturo Sanchez by doing that until he just stopped air teleporting because he knows that he's going to
Right.
reset
Yeah,
anyway.
so you take away that strength. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a million little tricks. It's really
Yeah, wow.
I really enjoy playing against Dalsim, but you usually lose more than you win because it's Dalsim, right? So.
Yeah, sure. So if you're a Dalsim specialist, what characters do you feel you struggle against? Or like if someone picks this character, you're like, oh, not this guy.
Well, Kyokuji, I had a set against him recently,
Mhm.
and it was the first time I played against the V Sodom other than what's his name? His online nickname.
A Mikely story?
Mike Lee story. Crack porn.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
he's the only other V Sodom that I beat, and I faced him in the recent tournament, and I beat him in the tournament pretty easily. And then I faced him, and then he challenged me as the first 3, and it was closer, but I still won.
Mhm.
But when I played Kyokuji, it was the first actual efficient, proper, V Sodom, and he beat me pretty badly.
Yeah,
And so he's someone that's a character that I haven't. Like I thought I was good against him, but pretty much the characters that I don't face often, right?
Yeah,
Like
you don't see many Sodoms. Not many people play.
Yeah, no, very few. Even though he's S tier, right? The S tier is Dalsim, V Sodom, and V Akuma. Those are the S
Right.
tiers.
Yep.
And even V Akuma, I don't do well against him because I don't play a lot against V Akuma. Not a lot of people. Not that many people take him on, and the people that take him are not. The only really good one that I know in North America is Sandman, but unfortunately, early on in the quarantine, his stick broke, and
really?
I barely ever played against him since March, at all. So I have no experience against. And I played this guy from Australia, Toxie, I think.
Yeah, we got a few good Akumas actually. Toxie and this other guy called Gizzle were pretty strong.
Yeah, and I really hated the fact that it was lagging, but
yeah, sure.
He beat me. He was able to beat me more games for sure. I would love to face him offline, but what can you do? We're halfway around the world. What
exactly.
Right?
That's the sad thing about all these conversations. That it would be great to play against you guys more. But,
I was talking to Tank. I don't know. You guys must know Tank. He's in the Discord. He's like the main.
He used to be the admin, but he recently took a holiday from there.
Yeah, I was talking to him. I was like, wouldn't it be great if one day there was some sort of a light speed connection and people could play all over the world with zero lag? And he's like, yeah, that would be good, but we'd probably be like 60 years old by the time that happens.
We're at our primes.
But imagine how stacked the tournaments could be if you could have them all the way around the world. The Japanese, Australian. I mean, it'd
But
be
you know,
crazy.
but like if I have a chance and I have the money and COVID finishes, I would love to travel around your area and just face people there. You know, face people from Australia, face people from
Yeah.
Japan. China has a scene now. Like they were holding some X Zone tournaments.
Yeah, yeah.
There's some really good. They're really starting. There were more Alpha 2 players, but those a lot of the Alpha 2 players are trying out Alpha 3, and you have some really good players. They're not optimal level, but they're really cool. I forgot the name, but there's one A Ryu he's a really good player. And then Korea, like the only one that I really know that's really good is online is
Beast Korea.
Beast K, and he's just a god, right? So
Yeah. Well, Asura was pretty good as well.
who?
Asura.
Yeah, Asura.
Oh yeah, Asura. Yeah, but
Yeah, he was
I
quite
haven't
good. We lost him though in the transition from 5K to 5K2. I don't think he figured
Okay.
out how to get it.
Yeah.
But look, often cited as the two strongest players in Canada, Sandman and QQG. Who would you say is the stronger player between them?
Because I never saw them play against her, it's hard to say. Sandman has the advantage that his character is really, really, really strong, and he uses it in a really strong way. Like Sandman is really good at finding spots to land unblockables.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say. It depends how often Kyokuji faced Akumas. If Kyokuji hasn't faced many Akumas, he might lose. But then again, Sandman hasn't faced a good Vs on him either. So it's really impossible to say. Like it's impossible. I don't know.
Well, you have both of them. So who gave you the tougher fight? Would you say?
Yeah, I guess Kyokuji's Visodom gave me a harder time for sure.
Yep.
But then again, that's because I'm not used to it too, you know. But I would love to face Sandman soon because I feel like I played him right at the beginning of when I restarted playing in March, and obviously he sweeped me really badly. And I would love to play him now. You know, whenever this virus finishes and we could play offline again, I'd love to play him, and I'd like to get my revenge on Kyokuji one day too. So
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
They're both great players. I think like I don't want to brag or anything, but I think top 3 in Canada is Kyokuji, myself, and Sandman, and I don't think anybody could really argue with that. The order, I don't know, but those are the top 3.
Yeah, interesting. I think I saw online somewhere that you went to Japan and played some of the players over there. What is that true? And what was that experience like?
Yeah. I went on a vacation to Asia, and I was my main destination was Hong Kong, and I had a layover in Japan, and obviously I was like, you know, I was born with Street Fighter, so the chance of going to Japan was incredible. And this must have been in 2003, so it was it was still around peak time. Yeah. So I was like, hey, I called the airline and said, can I stay a few days in Japan, right? Like instead of just laying overnight, can I stay a couple of days? And I was, we could extend it to like 3-4 days, whatever.
Yeah, sure.
And I was like, okay. And then I used all my connections. There's this guy from the West Coast, these OG Seth Killian. Yeah. He had connections with Bass, and he had connections with, I don't know if you're familiar with Kuni.
Yeah, Kuni, famous Zangief player, right?
Yeah, Kuni he's like the nicest guy in the world. He traveled to all the early on tournaments, and it was like, so I got in contact with them, and then I had an appointment to meet Bass at Moore Arcade, and they're like, Moore Arcade. Seth Kelly was like, okay, you get off at this station, and when you see the Coca-Cola building, you go to the right of the Coca-Cola building, or with the Coca-Cola advertisement, and it's like a couple stores down that way, and then you'll see pachinko machines or whatever, and you go upstairs. And it's like, I look around, and there's like 3 Coca-Cola buildings. I was so confused. I finally found it. I went upstairs, and there was like, I think 2 or 3 Alpha 3 machines. It was dying. It was starting to die down, Alpha 3. Not that it was dying down, but there's so many other fighting games there. I saw Daigo. Daigo was playing Guilty Gear. I think he was playing against the computer. Yeah, he was just practicing. He was
sitting in there by himself. Yeah.
Yeah, like Daigo likes to be. He just all he wants to do is play, right?
That would have
So
been surreal, just to walk into an arcade and Dargo's just sitting there practicing. Like,
yeah, he was playing.
cool.
I think he beat a couple of guys. He was playing against the computer, and I was like, I was too shy, and I didn't want to bother him. And then I went, and then before going to that arcade, I went to some random arcades that had Alpha 3, and I was pretty much beating everyone because I thought that in Japan everyone was amazing, but the reality Japan is just like any other country where there's scrubs as well.
Right.
Like everyone, it's only, like the top players are the top players, and everyone else is just average. So, but when I went to more arcade, there was like a bunch of great players, and I think I won a couple of games. It was very challenging, and then I met Bass there.
Yep, famous player.
I met Bass, and at the time, he was the #1 Alpha 3 player in the world. So here I am. Here I am. Like I was used. First of all, I was used to playing on American sticks. So I like to play on American sticks, and then I had to go there, and I had to play on Japanese sticks, which are different, right? So I already
more firm or something, or what's? I have heard that before.
Like Japanese sticks, or you have like the lollipop style stick.
Mm.
It's like the standard stick that you guys probably know.
Mm-hmm.
And then American sticks are like baseball bats.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They got to be tough for it to be in American conditions.
Yeah. Like back when arcades started, like they were used to everyone just beating up on the arcades, no class, like crazy. Yeah. So anyway, so I had that handicap, and then it was 2003, so I think I took a year off of Alpha 3, so I was a bit rusty as well. Mm-hmm. So, and then on top of that, so me and Bass, we did a head to head. He said he's going to play a set against me. We didn't have a set game amount. We just decided to play casually. And on top of that particular arcade, the rounds were 3 out of 5. So even if I was lucky enough to win one, I have to be lucky enough to win a second, and then be lucky enough to win a third to actually beat him. Yeah. So he beat me 18-0. And
I've been there. I know what it feels like.
What can I say? He totally destroyed me, and what can I say? He was the best in the world, and I was just the best in Canada. So
who was he playing?
he went straight to Via Kuma.
Like what character was he playing?
Via Kuma.
Okay, is he the person you'd like to rematch, or is there someone else you'd rather if you could choose one person to rematch?
There's a couple players that beat me early on that I would have loved to rematch. When I thought I was really good with Visakura, I faced John Choi at B5. B5 is like before Evo.
Evo, yeah.
Like Evolution 2002 was the first Evolution, but before Evolution 2002, it was B5. And before B5, it was B4, which stands for Battle of the Bay. It started off with B3 in Boston, and then it became B4 in California, then B5 in California, and then Evolution, etc. B5 is when I faced John Choi, and I was like, that was my dream, because everyone knew John Choi was really good with Visakura, and I wanted to beat him. But then once again, because John Choi had better fundamentals, had more experience, won more tournaments, was more used to Visakura, he beat me. And I always wanted to have that revenge. And recently I played a few sets against John Choi online, but it's a totally different dynamic. Like now it's like none of us took Visakura. Like I think I wasn't able to beat his Airyu. He still beat me with his Airyu, and I think I beat a set against his A Charlie.
Yep. Okay.
But he's still an incredible player, John Choi.
But now you have to verse him in his macros as well. So.
And his macros, yeah.
Wait, what's that?
Basically, John Choi beat Quentin McLeod, the famous Quentin McLeod, and he was doing shurikens like pretty quickly and pretty efficiently. Like he would do the forward instant shuriken, which is something that they learned. Alex Bell, John Choi, like they properly learned those techniques. And then after the match, Quentin, he said to John Choi, you're a pretty good player, but if only you didn't use macros, you'd be even better.
Yeah, got him.
And then John Choi was like, "What are macros?" He doesn't even know what he's talking about. And even me, that's the first time I heard about it too. Like recently, it's like people use macros. What is this? I still don't know how they work. But anyway,
Yeah.
and then they went into this big argument, like, no, I don't use macros, and then Quinn didn't believe him, saying that's impossible. You're obviously using macros, and then
Was this
John
all
Choi's
taking place in the Fightcade chat?
in the Fightcade chat, and then John Choi, he's a really cool guy, and he just said, yeah, you're right, I'm using macros. I'm a macro user. I'm a cheater. He just. But no, I don't think he uses macros at all. Like, I don't even think he knows what macros are.
Well, it became a big thing on Twitter, like everywhere. And I'll put the picture on this podcast when this plays. But Dan Dye, he actually made a picture of Choi, and it said something like the Macrolorian or something, and it was like a movie. And he stuck his picture on his action hero, and you see his Mus like holding it, and it's like photoshopped into his arm.
No. Like, I know he doesn't use macros because I play a lot against Carved, and he's also an OG player. And when he takes Iryu, I don't know how he pulls off those shurikens out of all different angles and all different places and all different timings. But I know for sure he doesn't use macros, so I know it's possible to throw out. Like, I haven't mastered it because I was never that much of a shoulder player. Like my second main is a Ken. But I haven't mastered the shuriken as well as those guys did, for sure. So those guys are really. John Choi and those OG players and Alex Baye. I really admire the way they use their shurikens, for sure.
Yeah, right. You mentioned a couple of times like the difference between online and offline play. Like, what do you think about that these days? With how does playing on something like Fightcade 2 or 30th compare to on in person in an arcade or on a console?
Well, if the connection is good, and you don't really have you could use Vism, but let's say you're playing Aism, for example, and the connection is good, like me and Carve, this guy from Philadelphia.
Yep.
Our connection is often below, like around 50 ms or below 50 ms.
Yeah, sure. Yep.
And the connection is pretty good, and it just feels like playing offline. Like, it's pretty good. I mean, I don't know what to say. It's really, I guess, it's different in the sense that you're not next to the person. But if the connection is good, and you could have pretty good sets, pretty entertaining sets.
Yeah.
So people say like it's never the same as offline. Like, if your connection is good, you could have great sets, and like, because you're playing casual, like, okay, so what if you miss one combo? It's not the end of the world. Like, people you win because of the main fundamental gameplay. It's like, it's not the end of the world if you miss that one frame link or whatever.
Yeah, sure.
I find if you have but like when I played Toxie or from Australia, and
it's huge difference. Yeah.
Or when I play people from Brazil, and it's like, okay, it's fair in the sense that I'm lagging the same amount as they're lagging, but I often got 10-0'd against those guys because they're used to playing North American players with the lag.
Yeah.
So they have lag tactics, which I don't have. And people tell me like sometimes I play against people, and they're like, oh, like, you're a legit player because you don't use lag tactics or gimmicks. You just play an honest game, because I've always played offline. I'm an offline player.
Yeah.
So I don't do, like, I don't know. Sometimes with Ken, if it lags a little bit, you could abuse the rolls. Like, I played Quentin once again. I played against him, and he was like rolling behind me, rolling forward, rolling behind me, rolling in front of me, and like I couldn't catch him, and
he just teleports.
He's just teleporting with his Ken rolls, and I was like, what the hell's going on, right? So,
yeah. How good do you think Brazilian players are? Like, there's so many on Fightcade, but I feel like we don't know much about them. We don't see many videos from Brazilian players.
Sure. I know they have a bad rep, but I don't really, from what I've seen, I don't think they have the best attitude. But as players, if it's strictly as players, I played against 2 or 3, and they're legit. They're really good. Like, they one guy was, I think, is Lunca Fighter Brazil or something. He was taking V Cody, and he had his combos down. He would finish the infinites, obviously. He would complete his infinites. So, okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
But and then there's Scott, which is like, I think he's A ranked. And I haven't played against him, but I've seen him play, and he's definitely legit,
Yeah, well,
But
I just want to say about Scott. We're talking about John Choi's experiences on Fightcade. There was a set where Scott actually lost to John Choi. I think it was 10-9. Choi didn't want to verse him again, and then Scott called him like a coward.
that's exactly what I'm talking about. Their attitude, because
Yeah,
Scott, after 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 John Choi beat him, like John Choi, the thing about John Choi is that he plays all the different games, right? So he doesn't want
Yeah.
to play Alpha 3 all night. Often he plays Alpha
yeah,
3, then he plays ST, then he plays Alpha 2. So if John Choi plays a set and it finishes 10-9, I'm pretty sure he's done with Alpha 3 for the night. He wants to play a different game. Scott was telling him, rematch me right now, first to 5. You're a coward, and I don't like that's not a cool attitude, and that's one example. But I don't think John Choi was dodging him. It's just even me, like after I beat John Choi against his Charlie, like a couple of days later I rematched him and he declined. But it wasn't because he was dodging me, because he was switching game,
Yeah, exactly.
John Choi doesn't have anything to prove. He's not out there to prove he's the best. He doesn't even care if he used to be the best. He just wants to play because he wants to play. Like a lot of 40 plus people, myself included, are playing. We're just playing for fun, right?
Yeah, sure.
yeah.
Do you still
Recently-
get that competitive? Sorry, you go first.
Sorry. Recently, you competed in the Alpha Vendetta tournament and you made it to top 4. Were you happy with how you played?
I finished third, and I was doing well in the winners bracket, and then I got steamrolled by OCX Rider. He took V Zangief, and I don't play a lot of against V Zangief, and he caught me off guard. He basically steamrolled me. He used all his all the gimmicks. They're not gimmicks though; they're legit tactics. But he used all the tactics that I wasn't familiar with, and he steamrolled me. And then in the losers, I made a big run in the losers, and then I faced Saber, and it was final game, final round, and I was leading by 80% life, and he only had a 50% meter with V Cody, and then he landed a VC, which I started blocking, but for some stupid reason, I thought I was gonna get guard crushed, so I tried to mash jab to break his string, and then he hit me, and then he started doing the infinite. And
oh wow,
he infinite. I still had a huge life lead. The announcers weren't sure he was gonna make it with his infinite, but he barely got past my life when it went to 0, and I lost against an infinite.
Damn, that's crazy. That's an intense Alpha 3 scenario right there.
If I would have won that match, I would have made it to the grand finals, and I would have finished top 2. But I was about to win that match because I decided to press a button while he was hitting me on block. He landed the infinite, and I never had anything against infinites that much. But after I lost that way, for a little while, for a couple of hours, I was like, "Yo, infinites are." I was a big hater.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Because it's really dramatic. Even Saber himself, he texted me after, he messaged me after privately, because he's on my messenger, and he was like, "I feel dirty." He was like, "I feel dirty." I was
hey, that's Alpha 3 for you. That's what
it's okay. He's like, I never finished my infinites, but you forced me to finish my infinite. It was the only way I could have won the round, and I'm sorry. And it's like, it's okay, man. It's part of the game, And it's like, it's okay, man. But I was really salty to lose that way. I was just staring at the screen. It was like the timer was going from 30 seconds to 0, and it was like click, low short, jump short, jump short, jump short, and I was just watching my life go away. And there was nothing I could do. In retrospect, maybe if I mashed, it would have helped. But I saw my tournament
flash before your eyes.
Flash before my eyes.
Yeah,
it was really quite an experience to live that.
Yeah. So just to go off topic a bit. Have you seen the show Cobra Kai before?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Yeah, the first scene where he's having that flashback where the Karate Kid he kicks him in the head and he falls down? Was that kind of what you were going through? You know the flashback scene, the final scene in the first Karate Kid when he kicks him.
I don't know.
You must have repressed that memory because it's too similar.
No, not exactly. I don't
Okay.
like after that night I kind of forgot about it.
Okay.
But
Okay. For now.
You know, yeah, I got it for now, but like I don't know. I just next time I'm in that situation, I'll either alpha counter or I'll just block because it's my mistake. It's my mistake. So it's like I'm going to say like it sucks the way it ended, and I wanted my revenge against OSCX Rider, and God knows when I'm going to have my revenge against him because in the past 9 months we've had 2 tournaments, the Red GGPO one and Alpha Vendetta.
Yeah.
So it kind of sucks because Alpha 2 gets tournaments like all the time. Even though on Fightcade it's like a lot less popular, but they get a lot more tournaments.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So yeah, we'll see. Maybe next tournament, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, always the next one.
There's always the next one. Yeah, 6 months from now.
Yeah. I have one more question. This is something that we ask a lot of our guests. If Capcom announced that they're making Street Fighter Alpha 4. What would you like to see in it? Like, what changes would you make to the Alpha 3 kind of format just to improve it slightly more?
Okay, I thought about this before because I know Sandman had an opinion about
air blocking,
what changes to make, and I thought about this. I can't remember exactly what my changes were, but one thing I don't like about Alpha 3 is the fact that only Vism has the command normals.
Right.
I think Aism
like Sakura's back fierce and stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. I think Aism and Exism deserves to have the command normals as well. I guess when they made the game, they just viewed Vism to be so weak that they had to give him some kind of advantage.
They knew. They must have known. The devs must have known about some of the VCs though, right? Like some of them work too well to be accidents, or do you think it was complete? They really didn't know that there was going to be these VC like loops.
I think the game was incomplete. You know, like they just. I think it's a great game in the sense that they just threw everything, but everything in the kitchen sink at the game and just added so many features that and a lot of them were not fully tested and incomplete, like the blue blocking. Like they just added that in. And it's a great feature, you know, like the instant block where you lose half guard where you flash blue, you know, and like or the red flash. Like I think they were kind of trying something out with that, but they had to rush to finish the game, so they didn't really fully develop it. And Vism as well. It wasn't fully tested because the game only came out 2 years after Alpha 2, and it's a completely different game. So I'm sure they rushed. They just threw everything in the game and tons of innovations. Like some of them went well, like the guard crush and like a ton of counter hits, and the flipping system was great too. Is great, and then some things were just incomplete. And that's Alpha 3. That's what it is, and we accept it. Like as players, we accept it. But yeah, the one thing I would change, like if ever they made like an Alpha 3 Ultimate Edition where they rebalance it and make it perfect, or Alpha
HDR,
4 where it's very, or Alpha 4 where it has to be very similar to Alpha 3 but minor changes. Yeah, but put the command specials on all the characters, and I think I had an opinion about the charge of the meters. Make the Xism and the Vism charges really fast. Aism is really slow though. Maybe make them equal. I don't have a problem with air guard. I think that's fine.
Yeah. Okay. Another one Sandman said was you shouldn't be able to activate when in Vism when your meter is 50%. You should have to get to 100%.
Yeah. Well. That's a good point. However, I think the game is a lot more fun when you can activate at 50% because it creates a lot. It creates a lot more actions, and meters at 50%. They're a lot less dangerous than 100%.
Less invincibility.
100%, your invincibility is really good, and also you have enough meter to follow up with the meter building at the end or the
Right.
infinites. But when you're at 50%, it's harder to land the post infinites or the post meter building. You have less invincibility, but it's still useful because what I like to do, not all people do, is like I like to let's say one really cool thing about having 50% is let's say you get knocked down and you have a character that's really good at crossups that are hard. Like let's say Chun-Li, right? So Chun-Li sweeps you and then she's jumping at you. You could just wake up, activate, and grab her. And I do that often. And I waste and like I'm not even using it for combos. I'm just using it for that little bit of invincibility to just get out of sticky situations. So when I play against Visum, and I find it's fun having 50%. I like it. But even CVS2 they changed it. CVS2 the A groove had to be full.
Mhm.
And I'm okay either way, I guess. But I think if it only had to be 100%, it'd be less strong. Yeah,
for sure.
And there was another thing, but yeah, go ahead.
No, sorry, continue.
No, like there was a couple of other things I thought of, but I can't remember right now. It was a long time ago.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay, my last question for you is just going back to those Canadian tournaments. Could you talk to us about T Series, like your experience playing that?
Yeah, so T Series, it was like I guess when T Series started was when the B Series were kind of popular. So they had the idea of T2. That's the first one, and it's not because there was no T1. The reason they called it T2 because it stood for Toronto Tournament, right?
Right. Yeah.
So that was T2. That was probably 2000, 2001 maybe. And back then, we would travel to Toronto, Montreal players, and we would pretty much win all the tournaments there except Third Strike. So basically, we would win Marvel 2, we would win CDS 2, we would win I would win Alpha 3 usually, and there would be and then Third Strike. The thing about Third Strike is that
It's not a very good game.
Toronto had a lot of international.
Yeah.
Toronto had a lot of international players that would come from different countries. So you had a lot of players from Asia that were really good at Third Strike, and they would play against each other. And at first, Toronto was better than us in Third Strike, but they would use all different characters. It was before people really abused the three main characters, the Ken, Chun-Li, and Yun. So they would be winning with all sorts of different characters. And then, but when Montreal, by playing against Justin Wong and looking at the videos, they realized that Chun-Li pretty much beats everyone, or Ken. Then when we really focused on those three characters, in the end we would be later on, a couple years later, then we would start beating Toronto and Third Strike. But Alpha 3, I won almost all the tournaments. Yeah. So I was right now, I'm probably not the best Alpha 3 player, but for at least 10 years, I was the best. After I beat Prez that one tournament, I didn't lose a single tournament for 10 years. So I'm the OG champion.
Of Canada.
Back then.
That's
Canada,
awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Luke, is that it for you?
Yep, that's it for me.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, Temujin.
No problem, man. Anytime. So, and maybe who knows what the future holds. Maybe one day, if I'm in the corner, I'll pay you guys a visit and play this Toxie guy offline and
for
see
sure.
what's up.
we got a few other big hitters other than Toxie as well. So yeah, we'd love to have you.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, you guys got great players. I really like what you guys are doing with the scene, and I hope you guys keep playing because after this virus thing's up,
yeah, or we'll come over there.
That's the place, or you go come over here too. Yeah, no problem.
All right, cool. Wrap it up there.
The Alpha Liz podcast is proudly sponsored by Free Play Arcade. Check out the Free Play Arcade community group in the description below. We'll be back in 2 weeks with a brand new episode. We'll see you there.